Okay, you're good to go, Renee.
Okay. My gavel. Call the meeting to order. We lost it. We can all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We are Fort Bill White. He is zooming in. And James is coming out of his fields and should be here in about 7 or 8 minutes. So that's the only thing we're missing.
Is Bill on?
Bill, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so if you want to participate, Bill,
We gotta see it.
we got to see you. If you want to participate in terms of. the
I
novel.
thought I had my video on. I don't,
Sorry.
the video is not working.
Oh, boy. Right now, we just came off the beach.
I was in Saratoga, I couldn't.
My video not working. Oh,
No
that might,
swearing.
there you go. All
Yes.
right,
Really
sorry
good.
about that.
Hi, Bill. So anyway, to bring everybody back, I'd like a moment of silence, first for, Josh Angel, who, was the victim of a homicide in this town, since our last board meeting, life taken too soon. At the same time, I'd like us to also have a moment of silence because we're starting a new school year so that students and teachers and bus drivers can all have a successful, hopefully no pandemic school year. And then since yesterday was 9/11, I would also ask that we all remember those who lost their lives, the 2,996 people. It's a lot going on right now. There's also been an earthquake in Morocco that killed thousands of people and a flood in Libya that they're saying could have killed 10,000 people. So we have a lot to appreciate in our lives in this town. And I would just ask for a moment of silence for all those reasons. Thank you. So you see the Pompey Hill Fire Department is taking up some role here. They have asked to be on our agenda tonight for a presentation on a plan they have for new construction of the fire department. So I'm not exactly sure. You can come up here, you can stand, introduce yourselves, talk to us, but loud enough so that everybody else can hear. And are those handouts for us?
Yes.
Okay, so come on up, identify yourselves and.
My name is Psycho Lusky. I am the chairman of the Pompey Hill Fire District. My left is Zach Nicholas, he's the chief, and Rob Davies, who's also on the board of commissioners. Today we're presenting a project we developed with our project manager. We are looking for feedback from you guys as well as the members of the people that reside in the Pompey Hill Fire District. And we hope to move this project forward at the end of this year. Yeah. So for the last 6 months, the fire district has been exploring options to update the fire department to better meet building codes and update some ADA compliances as well. Right now, we currently use our firehouse for fire protection, obviously, but also we allow the community members to use some of the spaces. So ADA compliance not really there currently. We also need to update some safety features such as air filtration and decontamination that's required by NFPA. So we explored two different options. Rehab of the current building and new construction on the existing footprint. We've decided that demolition and new construction is a better option as rehabilitation would cost just as much as a new build. Some general details of the project. This current building is well beyond its useful life and definitely beyond the point of rehabilitation. We're still in the early planning phases of this project. We're far away from plans and drawings, but we are working towards that. The new building would face Henneberry Road, giving us easier access to get out. It'll have 6 bays with 3 drive-through bays. The space will also include administration for the district and the department, as well as dedicated space for community use by the members of this district. The current square footage for the new building would be the same as the current building. So we wouldn't be increasing size. We're utilizing space a little more efficiently. New construction will also include sustainable energy such as geothermal and solar to help cut down the energy costs that we're spending currently. Let's look through the packet at some of the documents in there. On that first page is just our district that we cover. The next page is just a rough sketch of an idea that we've come up with. And that picture of that firehouse, that's just an idea that we all decided kind of looks good. It's not over the top. It's not too extravagant.
The purpose of facing the building the way it is laid out on the drawing. And that slanted roof over what would be the truss phase is to get the most utilization out of the solar panels on it.
Is that building brick? The new,
That one is, we're undecided on what ours would be at this point. This is the very early stages.
It's just meant to be a concept idea of what the building shape would look like in terms of like architecture and structure and those types of things.
The next page, got just our budget estimate. So it details a few things as like site work, demolition, new structure, or fixtures and equipment, which includes all of the decontamination and stuff that's required by NFPA to keep us safe. So the total project cost is $12.876 million. If you would like to.
All right, so now that we know that what the cost of the project is roughly $12.9 million, we prepared a rough estimate of what tax impact to the individuals that live in the fire district. And to kind of make it more clear, the individuals that live in the fire district, this would be an increase to your fire tax, your fire service tax, not to the overall taxes that you pay to the town. It would just be your fire service tax. And that only affects, I believe in the packet, it is 1,747 parcels that we cover in the district. That is not the entire town of Pompey because there's 2 fire protection districts or fire protection areas that we provide mutual aid to, but that we don't actually collect tax revenue from. So the current tax rate that is paid by the individuals that live in the district is 1.7994. And if we pursued a bond for the 12.9 million, it would translate to a bond payment of roughly $430,000 a year. And to be able to cover that bond, if we pursued the tax increase, it would raise the tax levy to 3.1442 per thousand. That's per thousand of a home's value assessment. The last page of that packet is really on the back side. It's really only meant for illustrative purposes. It's just to kind of break down and lay out that in hard copy. Essentially, we'd be, so on a home, which is the average assessment in the town of Pompey is 175,000 for the value of a home. So based on that, the tax increase or the tax burden for the individual, for the home that is in the district was $314.90. And if the tax levy raised to that 3.144 figure, it would increase the projected fire tax bill would be $550.35. And then to kind of put that increase into perspective, the Pompey Hill Fire District has historically only raised its tax levy by its 2% that it's able to every year. And there was a period of time where we actually didn't raise the tax levy in order to give a little bit of relief to the taxpayers that live within the district. Other districts and around the area and the fire protection districts have, as far as I know, as last year, it has actually raised the tax burden by 14%, or at least the cost for to cover those fire protection areas by 14%. That's all I've got.
Thank you, anything to add?
They hit on it, looking at this, as Ty said, you know, NFPA requirements and the ADA stuff, once we start into this building this area, we have to bring the whole thing up to code. So that was all weighed in heavily, and it was gonna be a major renovation. The NFPA stuff, decontamination rooms, you know, after fires and stuff, these guys have to wash their gear down, then they have to shower themselves to help prevent the cancer with them, because of all the carcinogens and everything that is in the lovely materials we burn nowadays. So to revamp everything and turn what we have to make that work, you know, to keep the members of the department safe, there's no good way to do it the way the building's laid out. When
What do
you,
you guys do now for decontamination?
they get hosed down, scrubbed down, put their gear in separate bags, their gear gets washed, and then some have clothes at the firehouse that they'll shower and change into, but there again, you're going through the whole building to get to that point. You got me on that. I lost my train. Good job. It's ultimately.
Lost my train of thought if I hit.
It's ultimately, you know, the safety aspect. It's right now we have some part-time career firemen out there. Usually 5 days a week. The volunteer service is fading out a little bit. So we need to get our building up and make it more accommodating, where in the future, if it comes down to it, and we have to add career staffing to it, we're able to.
Will you put this up to the residents to vote on?
Yes, this will definitely.
In
go,
November,
yes.
like when your other,
Yeah.
I think tentatively, it was discussed December, whenever the commissioner election was. I think it was tentatively to that, that is not set in stone.
So as a district, we have to propose the whole project to the individuals that live in the district. We actually have to hold and more official public hearing. As Ty mentioned, we're here to kind of first get the word out about the project, elicit your guys' feedback on the project, as well as get the word out in the town and bring in feedback so that we can adjust to the feedback that we're given before we do the official public hearing at a later date sometime this year.
So I've been hearing since I took office for 3.5 years that fire district was going to own the property. Has that happened yet? Because I have not heard that that's happened, and without that.
Final steps, it is
So it hasn't happened.
awaiting on a couple signatures from the lawyers, and that is it.
Okay. So that, I keep being told it's gonna happen, but if you don't
Now it's really.
happen, you can't.
Believe it or not, they say COVID held this up for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Well, so the property will soon be owned by the fire
Right,
district.
which I'm sure there's a majority of the taxpayers in this town that are not aware that the fire district does not own
Right.
that building, and it's based off the volunteers itself.
Mhm.
Which should put a little bit of light into the way the buildings come down and everything like that, and are deteriorated over the years as the volunteers. The world's changed, everybody's working more, families and that. To put the time in there to keep the upkeep on it and the funding along with it. You know, it's our field days and everything is what kept our utilities and everything paid for until this point and this transaction happens.
And to build off of that, the department has done what it has been able to with the funding it's been able to get to keep the building up as much as it can, and that's why we're moving forward with this project as fast as we can in order to modernize the firehouse and bring it up to the codes and meet all the safety standards they have to meet. Now, we don't only have to build a building, we have to build a firehouse, which comes with all the extra.
Whole different line of codes
Yeah.
as opposed to building your garage or your house or anything
Right.
like that. I've got nothing else. Any more questions on this?
Yeah. so we're-
Well, obviously, sticker shock. It's 8 million to.
Right.
Are you guys married to the whole brick facing and on your drawing, I see you got parking behind the building? On the drawing, correct?
Right.
Any thought of doing drive-through bays, so you don't have to have 6 bays?
So we currently have, in that drawing, there's 3 drive-through bays and 2 that are not drive-through bays.
How many trucks do you have?
Section, we're actually the largest fire district in Onondaga County with 60 square miles, so.
I understand.
Yeah.
We're the largest geographical school district.
Right.
We're making changes as far as apparatus and stuff to try and get it down in our size as what it is. And that's what we've come up with. This isn't something that was thought about yesterday and we wanted to come sit here and talk to you guys. There's been hundreds of sketches done and figuring done on how we can make it work, and that's what's come up with for the better suited option. As far as brick face to a steel structure, life expectancies get into that.
Yeah.
The fire department is, if you have an emergency, that's usually where people tend to want to go. So you're going to want to build something, a structure that's suitable to, if some natural disaster happens, that's there and you don't have to worry about that.
So you're not thinking anymore about building out into Academy?
No, we are not. We changed.
So that's gonna just be.
Yeah.
Stay as it is.
The way this project's projected right now, it would have to be done in phases. Just to keep us operational on it. Obviously, we can't tear down everything we have and not have anywhere to put our equipment and that, so it would have to be done in phases. To make that work.
Starting with the apparatus bay first and then the rest of the building.
So you
Then-
can start from the north and
Yes.
start building there and then, yeah.
And you guys that are looking at the drawings, you can see how it's, you have your apparatus bays and then I don't know what it's labeled in the middle, but that would be the departments, offices or in that, and then. Roughly on the end, like where the gymnasium is right now, would remain a community area.
Any thought to trying to? What am I trying to say? Save that some of that, the gym?
We've looked into it and what it's gonna cost us to save that.
It's too
Versus-
prohibitive.
Yeah, the cost to rehabilitate the building would pretty much be just the same amount of cost to rebuild, to unfortunately demolition and rebuild a building. We know the historical importance of the building to the town, so we're gonna do our best to preserve what we can of the building. Mainly, I think most of the discussion has been the original stone wall, the original school, and incorporate that into the new construction somehow. But the majority of the rest of the building is at a point where it's just unfortunately come to the end of its life and it's just beyond
Is there?
rehab.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Bill, do you want to ask anything? I know you don't, you listen most of the time.
Well, I was curious, how many parcels does the Manlius Firehouse service? Just trying to benchmark.
In the town of Pompey,
Well,
In the town of
no,
Pompey or their entire service
actually, I
area?
mean total. Yeah, I'm just trying to benchmark that the one that's up on Enders Road, how many parcels does that service? Do you know?
I do not have that answer
Yeah.
for you.
'Cause I know you guys have a much greater geographic area. And so I'm
Right.
trying to decide, do you do it by geographic area? Do you do it by number of parcels? So I'm just trying to sort of benchmark.
So to jump into that, to first answer your question, the tax base in Manlius, which is where the department's budget comes from, is roughly 3.3 times the size of our
Yes.
district in terms of parcels. So obviously we have a smaller amount of taxpayers to spread the cost out over. Which is why tax burden would be such an increase. In terms of what they actually service, I can only speak to the assessment. Their assessment value is obviously much larger. The value of the homes in
Yeah.
the Village of Manlius are much higher than ours in the town of Pompey. If I remember the number correctly, at least the town of Manlius, I believe, was in the 800 million area. Ours is, for the district, was only 303 million and some change, if I remember the number correctly.
For the Pompey Hill.
For the Pompey Hill district, I believe it's in the packet, the full number, it's 303 million, and then I think the next number is an 8.
Which is not what we get.
But yeah,
We do not get 300.
no, we do not get 303 million. Our tax levy off of that 303 million is about 542,000 a year. So that's what the district operates off of.
So you mentioned volunteers versus career. Are you foreseeing that every fire department struggles with volunteers? Are you seeing to the day when you're gonna have to go to career?
I'd like to say that that's not the case. But I would like to go on the record and say that I would build this building so you're not doing it again in 10 years.
The whole reason why we've started this project is to try to, future proof is a kind of a iffy term, but try to future proof the building and the department and the district as best we can in the future. So that's why we're still kind of back and forth between a metal structure that will last 25 years versus a brick building that will last 50 years. Because if we have to get a 30-year bond to cover the cost of the project, if the individuals in the district approve it, we're getting a 30-year bond for a building that will last 25 years. That's where we're at.
So this is just my thinking. Please don't come back, be into all the bells and whistles. Because what this town really needs is fire safety. That's what it's about, is fire safety. We don't need all the fancy things. So that would be the one thing I would ask you to keep in mind, and I'm sure you do. I'm preaching.
Honestly, there was a lot of thought given into whether we were gonna put a community built section
Yeah.
back on it. We do not, as a department, do not need that. But go ahead.
So I was instrumental in building the Delphi Firehouse. Okay, so I'm willing to share whatever information I have with you. There's other opportunities for funding. We were able to get a grant through Senator DeFrancisco at the time. It was 175,000 toward our building. And I might be able to help you out a little bit. But as far as the community room goes, I am an advocate that for the community to be part of the department and the interaction. I personally like the idea of community area.
The Delphi Firehouse has, allows community use in their building still, I believe.
We were at the fire hall.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the town of Pompey. You have the church. But outside of that, in the town of Pompey, there's no real community buildings. It was where a lot of thought came from on that. Because it is a lot more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're building it in stages, you can also see us, you haven't seen it go down construction. You only go up. But you can always also see where you're at when you get to that third stage, but
Well, this is gonna-
I don't think of community the community room as a bell and whistle.
Right.
I think that it's an essential part of a municipality is to have a central place where people can gather, so. I just,
You're not gonna see a water fountain in the front there.
yeah. So, has there been any thought, to fundraising
On the,
for for a capital project?
So
so the department, it didn't have the ability until this ownership transfer happens. And then the department, field days money can contribute some towards it and stuff like that if the department agrees to. As far as the district end of it, hasn't been any serious discussions about it until we sat down and had a conversation and presented this to the board and the people in the town. We don't want to go say, well, we're gonna raise money for a building and they think it's for the fire department and it's really for the fire district.
and
And I don't mean to say the fire department that needs to,
No,
Like-
I get where you're.
I mean, but you know how you see
Yeah,
the
and-
little thermometer go up every, as when they want the fireworks every year for their,
Yeah.
because they ask the community to contribute.
Right, in terms of grants, I've known the ones you're talking about from the state, the senators and the assembly people. Those usually roughly run 150 to 175,000 in my experience. I used to have a client that was a fire department that got a couple of them through that. The only other grant that I foreseeably see that could help fund this project is from USDA. It's their rural development program. Usually they only like to do long-term, low-interest loans. But that's also another avenue, but the unfortunate reality is there's actually not a lot of grants out there at the moment in terms of helping for the construction of a new firehouse. There's a bunch out there for hiring firefighters, for buying equipment and different things along those lines. But to actually, for capital development projects, there's not a lot from what I have seen anyway. The last time I saw one, there was one working through Congress, and the last time I knew, it was still in committee as of August of last year.
So this is a stupid, like, I don't know much about construction. Is brick a lot more expensive than a metal building?
It's hard to say with the prices. Really is.
No, I don't know.
The prices have changed so much, I can't answer that question. It used to be that way, yeah. But now,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, but
Okay.
the cost estimate in there, if I remember correctly, is based off a brick building. Our project manager actually reached out to a bunch of his construction contacts and got the value per square foot that is in there. And also the different costs for like site work and fixtures, furniture, equipment, and all that. We didn't just pull numbers out of a hat for that. That was actually in-depth research on what the actual costs are currently today to build a new building, especially a firehouse.
What does it say in the, what's the green? I can't read that.
I don't have one.
Is that what it is?
There was talk of putting a retention pond
Okay.
there. So we do have 10,000 gallon water tank buried right now on the property for storage and our use when we need it. And it was talked about whether that would be replaced or anything like that. And obviously, when you do a project like this, there's gonna have to be some sort of water retention and it was discussed that maybe it would just be a pond out in the back or whether it goes to an underground retention system and turns into another tank down there. Again, this is all preliminary drawings. Nothing's remotely close to finalized.
And this, doesn't the church own the parking area?
Just
to here. Okay, so that's why there's,
Just a little square. right here.
so what's this red?
That was a formal drawing before when the architect drew this, just as a rough sketch. He
Yeah.
did not realize that.
Oh, he thought you owned it.
Yes. So
Okay.
this
You would
red,
change that boundary.
right, that red tree would come right down just off, a little ways off the hill there where the hydrant sticks up, if any of you are familiar with that, and then loop around.
Okay. Just sitting next to the administrator.
know right there. It's like, I got this. Yep, I've got this.
They're taking some of the church's property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
But
So. You would put this to a vote of the people, the voters in the district at the end of the year?
The hope is
That's what
somewhere, yeah, end of November and December.
And then when would the
If
tax
everything,
rate change? Not until you bond?
correct, yeah, we still haven't gotten a bond attorney yet because, as Zach was saying, we don't want to really put the cart before the horse and get all this stuff lined up and then spend more money that is gonna put a burden on the taxpayer that we just don't need to. We need to get the project out and approved by the individuals that live in the district first before we do all the rest of the project management and development items.
You're gonna do a mailing to all the residents, talk to them, have meetings.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we have next weekend on the 23rd, we have an open house that we're holding. So if anybody would like to stop by.
When?
23rd.
Of September?
yep. Next Saturday, the building will be open. Anybody's welcome to walk through there and understand why we're looking this way.
Well.
Yeah.
And was it 7?
I don't remember what time you did say.
What time is the?
They were gonna do it, the auxiliary had their fall fest, so the building was gonna be open. I don't remember what time that started. But you can put 7 on there, it'll be fine.
I know, I know this is just a rendering. This looks pretty fancy. So if you're gonna be selling.
Definitely over the top.
Yeah,
Yeah, that-
if you're gonna be selling this to the district. This is not the picture I was.
That is definitely just again for illustrative purposes. This is like the structure and kind of what we're looking at.
And if you're looking at that picture, it actually shows the differences between your truck base, parking operational, and then the end of it would be your community.
That's a community.
And that's why we picked that picture to show us, to show that how we're trying to bring it up.
Yeah, and then just to circle back quickly, we still do have to hold an actual official public hearing on the project. So we have to set out notices 30 days prior to you all know how public
Okay,
hearings
yeah.
work. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so we're gonna hold an official public hearing at a later date in the year before the vote. Before the vote gets proposed.
getting people's attention, that you're having a public hearing and a vote. It's difficult. You can
Now
send
the
it.
word gets out, you're spending 12 million.
That's all.
Exactly.
They'll be here.
Right, yeah, when we're talking about a $12.9 million project.
The vote. What if it goes down to defeat? Then what?
Then we're gonna have to reevaluate it and
Yeah.
start all over
Go
again.
back to the table and yeah, start over.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for the information. It's very important.
Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have our contact information and we'll answer your questions that you have. I don't believe so. If you would like, we can leave our contact information for you so you can get a hold of us.
Before you leave, why don't you, 3 of you put that on here and I'll.
Okay.
By 3, she needs to put all our contact info down, Ty.
I think I have yours. And I actually have yours too,
Yeah.
but how about, and I take it you don't want to give us yours?
You got it. You got it. Yeah, we appreciate all your time and letting us come up, present our product. to you.
You gotta start somewhere with
Exactly.
getting the word out. Oh. You know what? Send it to me,
Okay.
okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you again.
Guys, have a good night.
Bill? Did you get the email with the ARPA proposal? I sent it today.
I will look, I haven't got it yet, but I'll, I can pull it up.
There's been a committee that's been meeting fairly regularly. I said, Jim. Bill and BR. to take a look at what we now have, which is a balance of about $620,000 left of our federal stimulus money, and how we could best use that money. And Jim's been really instrumental in keeping us. Federal. So, we met recently, as a matter of fact, yesterday. We finalized this to sort of get started on a proposal, and you should all have in your packets, your folders, the proposal that we started with. We originally started, the federal government gave us $254.16. How they figured that out? But in any event, in 2022, we used literally 63,000 for putting money towards the payloader. Right, we were short a little bit on that.
Yeah, by the time it came in, the price went up on the
Yeah.
loader.
A fuel system, upgrading the fuel system down in the highway that hadn't been budgeted for, and that was $20,000. And then the software for our accountant, which we've now brought us up to sort of the 21st century with our accounting software, that was 23,000. And then this year, we used 43,000 of it for towards a pickup truck that we had planned on doing at last year's budget time. And also to supplement the 188,000 that we had already budgeted for the original roof on the highway garage that by the time we got it scheduled had jumped to $20,000. So all told, we've spent 126,000 of that $746,000. So we have quite a bit of it, of ARPA money that we have a proposal. This is not set in stone. There is still a balance, even after we've gone through this process, that we have to figure out what to use. But we need to spend this money, first of all, spend it, but secondly, responsibly. Because the risk is that if we don't, the feds will take it back. And there has been talk about that. So it makes no sense for us to sit on this money. So the proposal is to use the money for town infrastructure. We looked at trying to do something for community benefit. We thought about a pool. The practicalities of trying to do something for the community and have it fit within the federal regs made Jim a little nervous. And if Jim's a little nervous, that makes the rest of us a little nervous. So we thought the safest way to benefit the town would be to offset expenses that we know are coming with this ARPA money. So the proposal thus far is to use some of the balance, which is about $412,000 of it for town hall projects, and then also for highway. So replacing the town hall roof is one of them, replacing all of these windows here, which are, if you ever get near them, you can see the moisture. They're all starting to go. Repairing the front hall, the town hall door, because in the wintertime, it's just like a sieve. And putting in a new lock system so that it's either going to be a swipe or some other way than just trying to fiddle with the key that is, I couldn't even do it today again. The exterior of the town hall is painting. We have landscaping that we want to get done for all the way around the building. And one of the other thoughts for this money is to put some of it towards a concept design for this space and adding on, because there's no private place in this building to conference. If we want to have executive session, we go into the assessor's office or the clerk's office. There's no conference room. There's no place for the judges to conference with lawyers or if there ever was a jury trial here, which I doubt, but if there was, there's no place for them to go. We have the copy machine in here. We have the mailboxes in here. We have these tables in here. There's just, so we would like to consider reconfiguring this space. There's a lot of wasted space. We had an architect come and look at the space and give us a conceptual, an initial, not conceptual, but a preliminary, some preliminary thoughts on it. And there's a lot of wasted space in this building. So in any event, that's what we would propose to use some of the money for, and that totals just under $80,000, those items. For highway, we would like to, the one community thing we would like to do is we would like to put banners in all of the hamlets. That's something that PR had suggested. I think it would be a feel-good thing for each of the hamlets. And we looked into that. That's not a big expense. It's $6,000. He, however, has, what is it, a 1995 dump truck? Is that the year?
Yep.
That could be replaced. That should be replaced. And those road mowers that wreak havoc on our ditches and scrub trees makes it look like a war zone. Not necessarily you, but some of the you guys, but those that we have two road mowers that are very old and we would like to replace one of the two. That totals $332,555. So that's where the $411,555 comes up. We come up with of the balance that we have. We still have a remaining balance to be determined how to be used of approximately $209,000. So there's still money to be used, but we thought we need to get started on some of this or we risk losing it. And that would be shame because all of this offsets things that we would otherwise be budgeting into the future for the taxpayers in this town to pick up the tab for. So that's my story. Bill, do you want to weigh in?
Nope, as I said yesterday, I agree with all those things. I think they're all in the best interest of the community and does the best job I could think of to benefit as many people as possible, which is a hard thing to do.
John, I don't know where you were, but we just went through this is John Shaheen. He's the planning board member and he's been on the committee as well. We just went through the proposal. John would like it's perhaps we could use some of the balance or some sort of a renewable energy project. Remains to be seen. But I'm open to, I'd love to hear from the board as to what your thoughts are. Some of these things could be done, could be started with board approval as like next month, if you will. Other things, he's gonna have to order things. They won't come in till God knows when, yeah. But at least if we have to commit these dollars to use by the end of 2024. And then we have to have spent the money by 2026. So,
Have you thought about the sound system?
yes,
Upgrading
I
that at all?
have. I've talked to Dan Bender about it. There is, if we do something to enhance the sound in this room, it affects the sound for people that are Zooming or streaming in. I don't know, and I don't have the tech background to know. I don't know, Veronica, if you have any idea, but the only thing Dan suggested, Bender, was that we could do closed captioning on this screen for people that have a hard time hearing in this room, but I'm not sure I like that idea. And I talked to Lafayette because Lafayette has a similar, they have a system like ours, but it's not as advanced. They have some technical difficulties too, but not as great. I don't know why. And I don't know why this room does not accommodate a microphone, why it interferes with this.
Even if there's like just two small speakers in the back of the room. Nothing up here, just.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what the answer is. It's if you try and enhance the sound in here, it affects the sound. For those that are listening. From home or wherever. So I don't,
Microphones, if we were to wear microphones to the board members.
that's what, it's gonna
That's what
affect those microphones. Those microphones, they'll conflict. Those are microphones for that system. If we put on microphones here, it's going to create problems for that. So I don't know what the answer is and.
And there was no like upgrade to the existing system
You
to,
know, I just talked to Dan about this, but I will revisit it with him because it is an ongoing request that, that people can't hear. In here. And meanwhile, the front rows are completely empty.
I was at a meeting a couple months ago. I sat in the front row and had trouble.
Well, and I sit at that back table, or John is, and I don't. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just saying it is a constant issue. And, so. But it's worth exploring because we do have dollars that could go towards that.
Right, what about the Hamlet signs? Could that be taken out of the ARPA fund?
That's the
Yeah.
banner, isn't it? Or is that different? Oh,
No,
that's
that's-
different than the banners? Yeah.
We could do that, yeah.
What are the banners different? I thought we were. Signs.
No, the signs are what Diane has been working on, but the banners would be.
Like flags.
Yes, vertical though, off the telephone
Attached telephone
poles
poles.
and it was more of a beautification effort, for the hamlets. But, yeah, that's a possibility. Again, it's not a big expense, but it could be used. Anything,
I think I like the idea of putting the highway stuff.
Because it's gonna be very difficult to cover those kind of expenses for the regular budget, so I think is. Having that money and trying to identify pieces of equipment. And especially some of them might take a year or so to get, so I think that is, in my opinion, that's kind of a. Big priority, because there's one that's on and we can't use from that, we've got to make it covered on the regular budget, so. Because that's kind of a godsend for a while and can really have the
catch us up.
Have the highway department in some pretty good shape for a few years. Definitely would help, so.
We still budget every year for equipment,
Well,
for highway, but
it's-
this is extra.
It's gonna, you would have to. Do a lot without spending some of this money there, you'd have to do a lot more pick and choosing on which equipment is going to get replaced. Which year, so I definitely like that idea. And when you mentioned a possible renewable energy project, have we considered putting solar panels on the town barn?
Yep.
Is that what you're
Yep.
talking about? Do you
It's-
have any
it's-
idea what that would
well,
cost or?
they just put, or they're almost done with, aren't they?
The roof.
The,
on the center section.
the new roof, and I don't blame him. He's a little hesitant to think about putting solar panels on his brand new roof. So we are looking into making, well,
I mean, but honestly,
that's not what I was gonna say.
That's what I'm saying. If you've got a really good roof that's gonna last a lot of years,
Yeah.
that's when you wanna put something like that on, because you wanna get a lot of years of use out of the.
Solar thing, and that would,
And it would completely cover, as I understand it, all of the electric electricity costs. Is that right, John? Which is like $24,000 or something a year.
So we're spending every year on electricity.
So if we put solar panels on the highway, it would cover all of the town's electric costs. So that's a thought.
I personally,
I do it because the incentives and the rebates from the federal IRA, New York, NYSERDA will cover 50-60% of cost.
I mean, I personally really like that idea as far as an extra thing. One, it does do, it puts the green energy thing front and center as a priority of the town, which we've heard on these meetings hundreds of times. And it's something that doesn't need isn't gonna hurt the neighbors at all to do it. And it's gonna benefit every single resident of the town, because if we don't have to spend the amount of money we're spending for electricity, that helps the taxes for everybody. So if something like that, and there are incentives for it, so if there's another idea for something else on town property for a little.
So the way they constructed this roof, we need to look into these channels that they put in there to see what their weight bearing is.
Okay.
Okay, because they went over top of the existing roof right now, which adds a lot of weight to that building. And there's 4-inch channels that they put with an 4-inch gap over the other roof. So I don't know how much of the hold or anything like that, which we discussed at the meeting that we're gonna look into for sure.
Very good. I just, we're talking about it. I strongly think that we should try to do something along that line, which would be very beneficial to everybody. Maybe there's something else. Maybe they're freestanding on some other town, whatever, but I do think that we should look into something like that would help, one, be green energy. It would help reduce costs for the whole town. Would put it to where we're, I've heard myself, we aren't, doing enough for green energy, and that would be something that would be for green energy that would easily be doable. My opinion somewhere.
Thanks, James. So I'm looking at this list and there are certain things that will not happen this year. Replacing the town hall roof it's too late in the season, even if we got quotes or whatever, this is too late. Probably replacing the town hall windows is a project that would need to be done next year. And John, pipe in if I'm getting this wrong, but things like repairing the front door, we should do that before the snow flies.
That thing was a problem last.
Yeah, and to get a new security system. The fall's a great time. Well, we thought about for the fall, but then we thought if we're gonna replace the roof, we maybe want to wait on the landscaping until we get the roof stuff done so that we don't make a mess. But we could also do the concept design for the some ideas for how to make more efficient use of the space that we do have. And then once you get a quote or whatever, state contract, we could put those orders in for those big ticket items, and get those ordered so that I want us to get this money starting to be used, but in a very responsible way. And I think, James, I completely agree with you about it's good for everyone to get this.
Well, that 10-wheel dump truck is a county contract. That's
Yeah.
a GS contract.
Yeah,
So
so
that
you
is a
could be
done deal.
purchasing that right now.
Could, yes, if you
So-
guys wanted to prove it.
You have anything here I'm just saying, we don't need to do it this month, but I do think that there's certain things that.
I'm saying
we
you
should-
can do it this month.
You've got it?
That's right there.
I've already seen it because we were looking at it yesterday. It so happened to have.
Just so. Right there.
But is there any reason why we couldn't approve those items on your list that you gave tonight? Just in an effort to keep moving forward?
Right.
There's still plenty of dollars left, even after approving those, regardless of price variations that may occur. And it just seems in the interest of moving forward, that's a pretty reasonable list that I don't think's adversarial.
Well, it would be nice to get some idea of the cost of replacing the town roof and the windows so that we could get those lined up for spring, the next season. And the painting, the exterior, just get all of those things sort of priced, and some of them are, like the roof is probably gonna need to be bid out.
No pictures, BR, come on.
No picture.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, we want to see a picture.
Renee, we also have the price for the signs. Okay.
Okay.
And I'd like to see those added in so we can move forward, so they're involved.
Yes. I'd like to see the signs added to it.
Okay, we'll do that when you get to,
That way be our,
Well, so,
the signs and still before fall.
okay. So what do you want to do?
I'm in agreement with you on this stuff. I'd like to. If we're gonna use the ARPA funds for the signs, I'd like to at least put that in there so we can move forward,
Okay.
so that she can get the signs done,
Well,
so they can.
do you have a quote from her that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we can.
No, but I mean, I don't have it here tonight. I didn't have it because I didn't.
The roof is somewhere near due to be done something with anyways, correct?
Never been replaced and it's 30 years old.
And then the windows.
The windows are.
Except for
Some of
those
them-
what?
We did.
There's a couple across the back that were replaced, but other than that.
We do the other ones, not the same ones, right?
Right.
So. The front door, we've had tons of problems with that. Painting is. I mean, I don't see a problem with this list because it's really plugging off things that we would have to do within a couple of years regardless. Am I correct on that? Understanding that all these things would have to be done within a few years regardless, so by approving them, even if they're next year, the idea is we're.
As long as if we commit the money and it's obligate the money, that's the word, wasn't it, Jim? We were sort of wondering what that meant, Tim. Like obligate, so does that mean we have to have signed a contract? Does that mean we have done a list like this? So we were not really sure what that meant, but.
Sign contract, or I believe it's designated by the town board to be spent on a certain purpose.
Okay.
I think at this point, short of actually having, a purchase order, or whatever you have for the loader. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't exactly approve the concept of this plan, but we're not actually authorizing the spending of this money until we have.
No. No, we would need quotes and everything to come back, except for BR, who happens to have his $226,000 dump truck right here handy for us to look at, so.
And that's a different one from the ones we've done in the past.
Yes,
Right?
yes. The ages of some of the equipment and the highway garage are unbelievable.
Guys are gonna feel spoiled. They have some nice.
I know.
products.
Gotta be careful of that.
We got a long ways to go.
Still got more
Before
junk
they
out there. to
spoil it. So, so we could start working on coming up with quotes for some of these town hall projects. The other thing I should mention, and I haven't mentioned it to date because it's been in the works, but when Assemblyman Sturpey was our legislator until the redistricting, I went to him and asked him if there was any more money that we could have got for the town of Pompey, and he came up with $250,000. That is now in the process. We are in the process of using that money mostly, and it's been approved by the state dormitory authority. It's just in the process of, we tweaked it a little bit, so what we wanted to spend it on. Most of it is going again to the highway. It's another snowplow to replace one of the ones we have. It's an oil and water separator that we should have. It's what do you call it for the welding system? ventilation, thank you for the welding. And new windows and new doors for the highway garage. A plow attachment and a spreader for the pickup truck, so we can use it as a plow vehicle instead of just, when it's needed. So that money is coming. But it's the kind of thing where it's not gonna, it's a state process, so it takes a while to get it. So we do have that as well. So we have really been trying to catch the highway department up. And I think you've had Christmas a lot.
Yes. So just to give everybody a quick idea, if you don't mind.
No,
The mowers, one is a 99 case tractor, the other is an 04. Our two dump trucks that haul nonstop, except basically in the winter. They go all summer, spring long. One's a 1995, the other was a 1999. And then one plow truck that's on the front line is a 2009 International. So that alone, you're looking at about $1 million to replace right there. Now, this 10-wheeler is gonna help a lot.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna keep moving forward, but
and once we can start catching up so that our vehicles aren't so old, they'll have some more resale value than they have now.
Yep.
We do get some, but it's not a lot. It's not what it could be if we could.
correct. Turn them over
Yeah.
at a quicker rate.
Yeah, so that's the goal. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this. Is this what you're telling me? I will add this in.
Yeah, so the 17 signs for the hamlets are the 4505. And then the 1120 is the new. sign.
So it's 5625 and that would be max. Because we might not do. Oh, no, we do need seven.
How many
17.
signs?
17? You're the one that went
You
around.
installed before?
You and I counted them. You and I went around and counted them, yes.
Phew. Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Okay, so,
Diane, is that just the signs or is that post and everything included with it?
that's a post. Just the signs.
It's just the signs.
Okay, so we can make a motion to approve the purchase of, where did you put that?
Right there.
This Volvo,
Right here.
Volvo VHD ALL. I'm reading it right off the price sheet. 64 F300.
That's the model. So that's
And
the
this is the
contract number.
contract number through the Onondaga County Heavy Truck Class.
Yep.
Contract is number 10914. The cost is $226,555.94.
Make the motion. I'll make that.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. I think we've had enough discussion. All those in favor?
This is
Aye.
using
Opposed?
the ARPA money.
Yes, to use the ARPA funds, so that when we pay, we will transfer money from my class. All those, any opposed? Motion carried. Let me go purchase that.
Thank you.
And then Diana has been working on the signs for the hamlets. Which you can explain when we get to it, but if you want us to include that in the ARPA funds, that would be for the hamlet signs, which is $4,505, and the town sign, which badly needs replaced out here, the big one. $1,120 for a total of $5,625. I would entertain a motion to authorize purchasing these with.
I'll make one then.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the sign
I'll
for the
second that.
hamlets.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. There's also a 200, we can, we'll worry on that one. Okay. Okay. So I don't know if, Tim, if we need a motion, just for conceptually, we're just gonna start working on these and then we'll bring them back as long as, is there anything on this list that someone thinks is not appropriate? Okay,
I mean, I'm just gonna ask if we're doing the signs, are the Hamlet banners still necessary? I'm just throwing it out there. If we're doing signs, do we really need to do the banners? Also, I'm gonna just throwing it out
no,
there.
I hear you.
Reasonable, I guess I would, if we're gonna put 17 signs up that designate all the hamlets,
Yeah.
is that maybe? Is that just a little overboard? I'm throwing it out there for at least conversation's sake.
Well, and it's not gonna happen, it wouldn't happen right away anyway, because if I think priority would be to get the entering the hamlet of Delphi Falls, whatever signs up first, so sounds like that'll be it's not a priority in this list, let's put it that way, so we'll see when we get to it. I understand. I think landscaping around the town hall, as much as it seems sort of maybe we do or don't need it, the town hall is so bare looking. That if we have some money where we could beautify this property, we could do that too. So, but that again is possibly something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see an idea of what you'd get for that money. For the
Yeah, no, we've already
landscaping, but
worked
I
with
think
Rain
it's a
Effects
still
to
good idea.
get we already have a quote from them,
Alright.
so. But we can address that later. Let's try and move on. Jim.
Hi.
Hi.
So we have the monthly supervisor's report, bank reconciliations. Relatively quiet month in terms of revenue. We brought in about $27,000. The largest chunk of that was a county grant for speed signs. Expenses were as approved last month. This month, in terms of direct expenses, all are pretty standard with the exception of the North Pompey water storage bond payment, which is coming out this month. That's about $51,000. Continue to earn a substantial amount of interest on our savings account with NiClass. We brought in $11,521. That brings the total for the year to $72,640 on interest income. So that's obviously very good. It helps offset some other shortfalls. We're making good progress against budget for the year. There's nothing that really concerns me at this point in time. We're going to continue to keep an eye on it as the year comes to a close, but nothing that, in my opinion, needs attention or any modification. Any questions on the supervisor's report or bank reconciliations? I'd ask for a motion to approve both those items.
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor's August 2023 report.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I'll make a motion to approve the bank reconciliation for the supervisor.
I'll second it. And seconds and all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And I put budget modification on because you usually have one and now you don't.
I don't have one. I do have notes to make a bunch of modifications for the new truck that's going to be purchased and for the signs. Those will be done in next month.
Okay.
Plus we feel we need to, no, because they'll be paid. So.
Yeah.
Nikki? Yeah, for acceptance of the August 8th regular meeting minutes.
I would make a motion to accept the August 8th. Regular minutes.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Everybody take a look at it.
All those in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
Motion carried.
The bank reconciliations for the town clerk and tax collector accounts August 2023.
Accept the bank reconciliations for town clerk and tax collector for August.
I'll second it.
Diana seconds it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And lastly, if everyone has reviewed the vouchers I prepared, I'm looking for a motion for the payment of bills.
Make a motion for the payment of the bills.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Nikki, the only thing I would ask you to do on the Town of Tully swim program bill, will you just double check with them that that's the right amount? I wrote it on the.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have.
Okay. You got your purpose.
So we'd like to swap from UniFirst to Aramark down the highway department. It's about half the price. UniFirst has been going through a lot of help lately, but kind of tough. So Teresa went ahead and priced it out and figured it out for pretty much the same services for like half the price. I can get board approval on that, it'd be perfect.
Raising the rates or no?
Yeah.
They
They put in
keep-
some fuel charges and service charge here.
And a garment repair
Yeah.
charge. For every week, whether you.
Yeah. Whether you rip something or not.
Yeah.
Well, they're looking at that. I'll give everybody a little progress report. Like they said, the metal roof's being installed on the town barn. About 80% done at this point. We put a new roof on the outhouse over here for the schoolhouse. That's been in dire need of being done for a while. We dug out the Spruce Ridge South silt pond on Fraser for removing around 100 loads of silt from there. We took delivery of 2 Chevy pickup trucks, one 3500, one 4500. Which will be auctioning one of the old ones off here probably next month. I'll get my surplus list made up. Still waiting on the sweeper that was supposed to be here in May. Now they're saying it's the end of October. After sweeping season, of course. We were able to oil and stone approximately 10 miles of road and are currently working on finishing some micro paving down on the north end of Pompey, which includes Gibbs Road Extension, Chadwick Circle, and Yellow Birch. We crack sealed all of Pompey Pines, Hartfields, Stephanie Drive, Lamp Post Circle in preparation for doing some paving probably next year. And not to mention all the ditching and all the stuff we're doing, putting in driveways and whatnot. That's about it.
Did everybody look at the calendar? Thanks for the. I'm done. Yeah.
Yep, so you need a motion to that.
Make a motion, please, to,
Which,
enter into a contract with Aramark.
and that doesn't, there's no conflict, you were allowed to get out of the other one.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Actually, I don't think this is a contract either, but
Well, there's something at the end.
I think you're just signing up for their services.
Oh, okay.
Month by month.
I think it might, yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. All right.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do I have to sign this on this page?
What's the monthly charge?
Well, that was 54
It's
or
47,
47.94 a month.
$7.80. Yeah.
and we've been paying close to 90, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Is Teresa signing this? Who's signing?
you can say it.
Okay. So is that everything?
As long as it was approved.
Oh, did we? I thought we approved this. We did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Okay. Everybody see the codes report? Okay, any questions on that? I would just say, there's a good place to say it actually, because I'm looking at the front page of it and has the planning board and the zoning board. Both of these boards have been working overtime. They've been very busy and they've had a lot of complicated applications that have come before them. So I've sat through all of them. And I just think that they've all done a remarkable job in prepared and in resolving the cases, the applications as they come through. So kudos to the planning board and the zoning boards. Tim.
I'll second that, we don't see them boards. The last few months.
Yeah.
This is on the, in my report is the local law to to override the property tax cap after 2024. We did this last year. It's a prudent step to take, especially in light of the fact that we haven't completed the budget process yet. We have no idea where we'll be, so I would recommend that we set the date for a public hearing to do that local law at the next meeting.
So has everybody reviewed the resolution? So I would make a motion to set a public hearing to consider a local law to override the 2024 tax cap at next month's October 10th meeting at October 10th at 6:35 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. So October, what we say, 10?
Yes.
All right. Okay, that's Tuesday.
we set a date?
Yes.
Tuesday, October 10th.
That's the next meeting,
It's our next meeting, yeah.
Okay, the next item is a resolution to create a public hearing for the short term rental law that is drafted by a committee. I actually will defer to supervisor and whoever else worked on the short term rental law, but as I'm applying the provision, but
Don't hide the answers. There are some people, we had a 6-person committee. Adam Scalisi from the ECC. Ann and I from the town board. Kevin Corson from the planning board, and then Helen Bailey and Nancy Furdock representing the community. And we worked on this for several months. And got it to a point where we felt that it was ready for presentation to the town board. We had both Tim Barrett, I'm still sensible, both Tim and Tim Fertetti review it. And give it its, at least its blessing at this point. There's nothing illegal that we're proposing, but it will need to go to a public hearing for consideration of its passage. And if we spent a lot of time trying to parse out what would be the appropriate mechanism for someone to have a short-term rental in the town. And we came up with the registration system. We're not looking to make it into a full-blown. You have to go to the planning board or whatever, but there are certain conditions that you will have to meet that relate to the number of occupants that you can have in a short-term rental. The provision of off-street parking, so you're not having cars parked on roadways. Recommending written rules for owners to have, and we actually have attached to this document as, and thank you, Nancy, because she came up with it. Guidelines for homeowners to use for rules for their, whether it's curfew or noise, whatever, it's parties, number of guests, trash. Giving notice to neighbors within 200 feet that they do have a permit to have a short-term rental. This is in the packet that, Veronica, did you get a chance to post it?
I did.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is in the packet that's on the website for tonight's meeting, but we'll also post it separately as a local law for consideration. So everyone can read it. There are enforcement provisions in here if the property owner does not comply with the terms of the short-term rental local law. It's a start. So this is what happens is we come to the board with the proposed law and we'll see what the public thinks at a public hearing. So I don't know if anybody here on the board has any.
I read through the whole thing today and I think it's well written and you've included a lot in here as safeguards. Like you said, make sure you notify neighbors and you've covered a lot in here. So I actually like the way it's written.
I read through it last night and I thought it was very well done also. We in there with it, we have like, there's a limit for how many can be in the town. Do we have any idea how many there are now? I'm assuming that number came from.
Yeah, I was going to mention that if, yes, there's about 10,
10 or 11.
maybe.
That we know of.
That we know of.
That we know of.
We've got 20 written in
No,
here.
40.
40, all right.
We decided, we went back and forth on the whole idea of how we would limit the number in the town because the issue really, the impacts long-term rentals, if people want to live here versus just stay overnight for a weekend for something. So we don't want it to be something that becomes pervasive to the point where it affects things like that. So we struggled with how to do it. First, we thought about 1%, the households or the properties, but we ultimately settled on a number that can be changed according to this right now, the draft by the town board based on, as factors come up or issues come up or whatever. So, but 40 was, I think, Nancy, correct me, how do we come up with 40? Do you remember?
There's like 10%.
No, it was like 1%.
It came out
Think of the households was 30.
I think, or.
Yeah.
There were like 30.
I think we rounded it up to 40. There was like 36 parcels and we decided to just go with 1% for now and see how that works because we don't have a big demand right now that we know of in the town. But there are some. So anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the fact that you put it in there that if for some reason there's a lot more demand for it, we can approach it, readdress it, or we can keep there. I think it's a good, well-written, thing, a good start. The rules seem fairly reasonable as far as I could read on it. My wife has rented places and them rules are exactly what you almost see in every one of those places anyways. They're usually posted. So I don't think it's anything that is over strenuous for someone to have to follow and I think it's a good way to do it and we have to readjust the number. It can be done, but I think it's very well. So I'll make a motion. We have the public hearing
next month,
next month. Yeah.
we want to do it at 6:40.
Yeah, one after the other one. 6:40.
Got to pick a time.
I'll second it.
Say 7. I don't know.
Nikki, what do we normally do when we have?
6:40.
Okay, I was gonna say when we have more than one public hearing.
All right.
Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor? of setting the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay,
There causes
The,
you just pay for apply for that. So I'm just asking if you apply, so you get to pay money for the certification.
I don't know if we probably could get, there might not be. Maybe we should put something in the page. Registration. fee. Just 2.
the next item is the policy against discrimination and harassment. This is been drafted by our insurance company. I've reviewed it and it reflects many of the changes that have been made in state law over the last year and a half. It recognizes laws that relate to sexual harassment or hostile work environment and one of the biggest changes is that it really isn't about the intent of the alleged harasser, it's more the impact on the victim. Is the target of that activity. But also recognizes many gender diversity type of issues that our previous sexual harassment policy did not. So I would recommend that we adopt this policy and make it part of our employee handbook.
I have one question. There was one section 7 that said it was optional. I don't know why that was. And also, we're supposed to like identify a compliance or a compliance officer or officers, and I don't know who that would be. Of course, I'm thinking of but I'm not sure that's who.
The compliance officer is the person who generally take in the complaints unless it's a supervisor, especially if there's a supervisor that's got issue. But the compliance officer really is the person who's making sure that the trainees are done. And yes, it usually is the town clerk because she's here.
Yes. Typically, I send out something about training for this. And Nikki gets the certificates once people completed the training, so. And that's how we've been doing it, but, so I just didn't know, I don't know why they made the appeals section optional, I guess that's the question.
I would remove the optional component of it. It should be, people should have the right to appeal.
Right, that's what you mean, leave it in, yeah, okay. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, and then should we designate the town clerk as the compliance officer?
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the only two things that I was not sure of. Okay. I would make a motion that we adopt this policy as the town's, and it would supersede the one that we currently have as this one is with New York state law.
I took the training thing and this just a month ago.
Yeah.
Pretty much this stuff here. Doing reading this. That's what it was, so.
I know, because it doesn't count. If you've taken it here, you gotta have still taken a score. Okay. I hear a second. Yes.
I seconded.
Oh, you said, I'm sorry,
Yep.
that's
You
right.
made the motion, right?
Yeah, yes, I did. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Last item is the issue of townwide noise ordinance or noise local law. I think it was discussed at the last board meeting. Supervisor, some questions for me about noise ordinances. How they're enforced. My experience with noise ordinances is that they're very difficult to enforce. They have very strict standards that cannot be ambiguous, and the code enforcement officer actually has to have the tools available to him to enforce the standards that you would have to implement. Most noise ordinances that I have seen have declared unconstitutional because they are ambiguous. They don't have the standards that are required. So it's been my experience with them. But I'm happy to discuss it. I know the board has some thoughts on noise ordinance and the impact of a noise ordinance on a town like Pompey, which is more rural. And the expanses of land make noise ordinances a little bit more difficult to enforce. There are specific areas of the town that the attention, I think we can address those in other ways, but those are my general thoughts.
I have to say after our public comment section, session last month, and the statement that was read, I went and did my own research on noise ordinances, and they are extremely detailed. They cover everything. From barking dogs to backfiring cars to construction. I looked at 5 of them. They're all like that. And I don't know. We were sort of, it was demands placed on us last month that we entertain a committee to consider a noise ordinance for the town of Pompey. I have to say, after having sat through the planning board meeting last month, the planning board did a masterful job of dealing with the noise situation at Heritage Hill. We were through the meatpacking facility application. So I think if that's what you're talking about, that there are other ways to consider to deal with it, like let the planning board take it up as it comes. To me, that just seems like a whole lot better way than to impose something on a whole town.
I agree. Pompey's very varied. We got the north end, you know, that's population, and then we've got all vacant land up here. People are spread out further. I think it would be easy to monitor.
I'm also in agreement that, you know, and because I came out last meeting, I've had several people specifically tell me that, I think most people think Pompey is a place where you should kind of be able to do your stuff, don't, respect what you do, but be able to do your stuff without overburdensome things. And I think I think it's a slippery slope for nitpicking this, nitpicking that. I think it would be very well handled, like you said, if there's a certain area or I think the planning board is very up on it, if there's a business, something coming in that's could possibly have more noise, then it comes up as an issue and they kind of put restrictions on to try to address that in each individual little place. So I think that we're dealing with it in the right way, and I don't think we need a townwide thing. It's very hard to say. There's so many, when you do one, there's so many little things you put in there, and it's, to find one thing that might make sense to try to limit, but then something else could make more noise than that you haven't put in there. So to me, it's a slippery slope.
Anything?
I would want to make sure it's done right, because we have enough laws out there that aren't enforced because there's too many loopholes or minute reasons why they can't be or are just not. I don't see the sense in putting a law forward that's not going to go anywhere. So, and you're right. Town of Pompey's huge. It's diverse, and depending where you are, you'd almost have to zone it. Like this zone can't do this or this zone can, type of thing. So, I mean, my neighbor down the street has parties a couple times a year. They're so loud the whole town can hear them. Even the police won't do anything. So but
Well, and I have
It's
a
not
neighbor
all the
who
time.
likes to set off fireworks.
oh yeah,
And well, the little ones are fine. The spectacular displays, my dog is absolutely insane. I have to get in the car and drive her around. And that's not even legal. So.
But a lot of these things, if you're, and I'll say this publicly, if something is going on and a neighbor is doing something that's bugging you, you go over in a nice way and say, hey, whatever, or maybe hey, If you have a dog that has a problem with fireworks and you're at a party and you're gonna be shooting out some fireworks, maybe tell your neighbors, hey, we're gonna be shooting off some fireworks, wanna let you know. I mean, there's ways you can go about things in a nicer way that, you know, you probably take care of most of this stuff without having to deal with putting more ordinances and more codes things. And I just think that this can be well taken care of personally, and I hope that that's what how most people do it. If there's something that you know, there's a party once a year or twice a year at someone's house, maybe talk to your neighbors, or if you're gonna have one, hey, we're gonna have some music, it's gonna be loud, just want to let you know. You know, if there's anything we can do for you, want to come over and have a burger or something. I mean, there's simple things you can just throw out there and say, hey, enjoy, come over and enjoy some food. And sorry if we're gonna disrupt the neighborhood for one day, you know, but that's an easy way to do it. You're gonna shoot fireworks, tell your neighbors so they can, maybe they take their dog to someone else's place for a day or something if you're gonna do it, you know. It's not respectable to do it every single night, but you know, if you want to do it one-time thing for something, I think it's makes sense.
But you have to be able to enforce. So there's no point in putting a law or anything that it's gonna be too hard to even enforce, because who's to say, you know, you can put in a complaint about your neighbor's noise, and then somebody, you know, 2 days later, the code officer shows up, but the noise isn't there anymore, and then how do you determine that there was actually enough noise that I don't know. I'd have to look into it more. I don't know.
Well, I know that whole row practically is not happy with the way the board is talking about this, but I cannot see imposing a noise ordinance across the whole town for a localized issue. Because we don't have noise issues for the most part in this town, but we don't get the complaints. So you can talk at public comment. Okay, Jim. But it's just. That's where I'm at with that. So I don't know, Bill, you want to weigh in?
The only thing I'd say the same thing that everybody else has said. Our codes officers are stretched and dealing with issues which are far easier to deal with than something like this, are far more or less ambiguous. So I completely agree.
That's all I have for tonight.
Diana. I put in everyone's folders, the work she's been doing on the.
Yeah, I was trying to share with James on my little phone what the signs look like, because he hadn't seen them yet. I didn't realize he.
Oh, sorry.
So I've been working on this for a few months with Nancy Abbott. And through a couple of various designs and ideas. These are 3 of the 5 ideas that we've come up with so far for the signs for the hamlets. I think they look great myself. We've tried to individualize each hamlet. So it's going to have a picture that kind of is unique to that area. So the signs would be, I don't know, the color scheme maroon and white, with a picture on it. And I don't know if any of you have been to Delphi, but those signs are falling apart.
Yeah.
One of them's actually leaning against a tree right now, which is what started this project. And so we said, if we're gonna do Delphi, we should look at all of them. So these are our final drafts of these 3 hamlets. We're still individualizing the picture for Pompey Center and Pompey Hill. And
I think we're gonna do a schoolhouse for Pompey Center.
Nancy liked that idea too. So yeah, we're looking to go ahead. She's just saying, well, you know how tonight went, so we can go ahead and get the signs made and get them up hopefully before fall and winter, and we'll add the air's plate.
We don't have anything to.
Well, I like them. I think they're nice.
I like to.
Orange has a
Train.
which used to be, the railroad there, and the Delphi Falls obviously has the falls, and then Watervale has the stream and the water wheel, so I like them. It'll be good for the homeless. Thanks, Diane.
The Delphi ones are fully a mess, so that they needed something anyway, so I think this is a great idea.
I did get a request from somebody in Delphi to keep one of the signs for historical purposes. 4x8, whatever.
I'm gonna take the one from the other side of town, still looks like. It still looks like a sign. Yeah, a tree fell on one, of them, so.
Just one, 1794. Water bill was before the other two.
So we got a bunch of information from the town historians.
In the 1790.
Yeah, one of them was,
1794.
We can double check on that. If you have more information.
No, if
Sure.
Cheryl gave it to us, that's.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah, she gave us a lot of information and we've been weeding through it. Some of the stuff's hard to find. You know?
Yeah. So supervisor's report, two quick things. I've been continuously in touch with the village of Casanova mayor. This is my contact on Cas 4. I know if the state police are leasing it for the next 2 years and they are not allowing outside access to any part that they're leasing, including the athletic facility. And in fact, they're draining the pool, which means they're not even going to use it, which is very frustrating. So this Dave Angelo helped me connect with the AD at FM because they used to use the pool as well. And they are spread out all over in 4 different places for their swim teams though, right? This is lessons. So this is a much like,
Swim team is at Calvary Club, diving was at JV. Now I believe they're going all the way to Henniger.
because they can't use the JV. And I mean, so we can explore again Jamesville Beach, which was, or stay with the Tully program, but Jamesville Beach had algae in it by late July last year, and that will ruin swim lessons. So it's a very frustrating situation. I meant to share with the board and I completely forgot, guys, so I will make a copy and send it. But the New York Times had an article in July on when it comes to swimming, why have Americans been left on their own? Because there's no place to get swimming lessons anymore, or very few places, and the ones that do provide it cost a lot of money. So I will keep informing as much as I know, but it is very discouraging. The pool is being drained. It seems like a waste. But I can understand for security purposes why. That's probably why. And last on the list before public comment, it's again time to do the Justice Court grant application where we can get up to $30,000 for town projects, and it's just a matter of applying for it with the judges through the state. I get the agency in the court system, but it requires that we have a resolution authorizing us to apply for the money. So you have in your packets. All I did was update it from last year. It's the same basic resolution. We did not get money last year, but we're hoping that we'll get it this year. And it's due by October 13th. So we need to. I need a motion to
It's a motion to authorize a resolution to apply for the grant.
any discussion still or anyone else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
This is more about the swim program.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's all right. Is there, I mean, I wonder, is there any way we could get any feedback from the people who did do
I was wondering
the
that.
Tully, the one at Tully, was it, how was it? What, I mean, Or, you know, because my kids were such different ages and it was just not practical. We did not participate in it. Which bothered me, but that's just, you know, that's impossible to, you know, the way our family was set up with so many different ages that, you know, we had to make
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
So, but
I'll look
I
into that.
definitely would like to know, you know, and if there's public out there that did use it, I would love to hear somehow how it went and if it was good, if it was, you know, what, you know, obviously it was a lake versus a pool, but was it, you know, was it a good program? Was it a, did they kids enjoy it? I mean, I'd like to know that kind of stuff as we go forward. And if anybody has an idea of a public pool and we thought of, you know, is there hotels, is there other places that we could find to do something? I mean, please, if somebody knows of a place that, you know, bring it to someone's attention because we, you know, we're really hoping that when the Cass College thing, we were hoping something like there would come back around, but it's obviously not. So, you know, I'm just putting that out there to the public to somebody knows something or hears something, forward it to us so we can investigate it.
So we are ready for public comment. You guys all know the rules, name and address. And Veronica, you can keep track of anything. Virtually commenting.
The first person is Laney. Ever written it?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, really close. I'm gonna pass because all of my questions and everything I was wanting to hear, I've already heard, so great job.
Next is Ivan Fuller.
My name's Ivan Fuller. I live at 3915 Route 91. I'd like to take this opportunity for a suggestion to the board. With all of the towns around us that are jumping on the solar panel projects today, Manly is for one who has 6 of them going right now, that maybe we could take the next year or even 2 to learn from these towns of all of the issues and problems that they're having, that we could just sit back and relax and learn from what's going on with all the problems and issues and lawsuits. And just reflect on these. We can learn. If this is a good technology, then it will only get better. If it's a bad one, then we'll find out. There's no sense in jumping into this. We don't need to leap into the fire. It will only get better if it's good. So I think this is just a good time for us to reflect on that. So these companies that are in a hurry to shove this down our throat, I just don't see the urgency in it. Sometimes it's better off to just wait. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is Barb Stacer, Sweet Road.
I will actually pass as well. All of my questions were addressed by the board and I would only be repeating Ivan, so I'm all set.
Thank you. Next is Alma Hartnett.
I just wanted to say thank you for
Here, Alma,
making.
are you on Ridge Road? Is that the Alma Hartnett?
2703 Ridge Road. I want to say thank you. I was concerned about the town-wide noise control restrictions because we are an ag town. And the farmers, they work some morning till night with their machinery. And that's how they get their stuff done. My husband's out in the woods, sawing woods, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I wouldn't want any restrictions put on that. Thank you.
Next is Martha Vigliata.
Martha Vigliata, Gibbs Road. I just want to say, share more of my concerns about solar in Pompey because of the realities of climate change. I just thought I would pick out a few stories, very concerning and depressing stories about climate change. Just to pick a month, July of this year, which was the hottest month that the human species has ever experienced. globally. I'm sure you all read some of the horrifying stories of people in the Southwest especially, where temperatures went to 110, I don't know how many days in a row. If you fell down on the sidewalk, you could be hospitalized for burns for falling on the sidewalk. The ocean temperatures off of Miami in Florida, the ocean temperatures were 90 degrees. Floods in Vermont and smoke from Canadian wildfires. This is something that some of it here. Other people around the country have experienced it. People around the world are experiencing it. It's also only going to get worse, actually. Even if we stop burning fossil fuels today, the world is going to continue to heat up because of all the greenhouse gases that are already in the atmosphere and some of the positive feedback loops that are already happening when polar ice melts. The waters get warmer, polar ice melts, the more the ice melts, the more that the water will warm up because the water absorbs more sun's energy than the white ice and snow. So more melting means more melting, basically. Those loops are already starting. That's only going to get worse. So that's the bad news. It's always a lot of bad news. The good news is we have solutions. We have lots of solutions. We know what works. We know what will help. Individuals can take many steps to shrink their own carbon footprint, but we need political will for the bigger, more impactful measures. And I have just a few reasons that shifting to local energy sources like community solar, reasons that that's a good idea to shift to local energy sources like community solar. There's a law passed in New York State called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, CLCPA, which requires National Grid and other utilities in New York to reduce the amount of power that they buy or generate from fossil fuels. Currently in New York State, almost 50%, and the statewide, almost 50% of the power in New York State either purchased or generated by the utilities. Almost 50% of it is from oil and gas. That's got to go down to 30% by 2030, according to the CLCPA Act. And it's got to go down to 0% by 2040. 2030 is only 7 years away. We're supposed to come from 50% of oil and gas in the state down to 30%. And then 10 years after that, down to 0%. As we shift from heating, heat and air conditioning in our buildings, which use a lot of oil and gas in the state, and we shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, we got to get all that electricity for all those heat pumps and all those EVs. We got to get that electricity from somewhere. We don't want to get that electricity from fossil fuel burning energy plants, power plants, because we would just be shifting the pollution from the buildings and the cars over to dirty power plants. We need to have more and more clean energy plants the more we electrify our HVAC and our cars. There are other advantages to shifting to local distributed energy sources like community solar. Instead of having, I mean, that's from my understanding, and I'm not an expert, but from my understanding, the future in the energy grid is away from huge power plants that power big areas of the state and more toward distributed, smaller energy plants, be they solar or wind or smaller nuclear plants, which is also always a hope to get technology and the money and the safety and all the other issues so that you can have more nuclear, smaller and safer. But solar, wind, hydro, whatever, smaller and more of them.
It's 5 minutes.
That's fine, okay. There are solutions to climate change at every level. More sentence. There are solutions to climate change at every level. We just have to take the steps, and Pompey can be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Nancy Furdock.
Nancy Furdock, Sevier Road. So when I heard my husband and I live in the Pompey Hill Fire District. And when I heard Rob Davies and Zach and the other gentleman talk about the cost of a new firehouse, and that the burden would be on approximately 1,700 people, that just immediately raised a lot of red flags with me. It seems like an exorbitant amount of money to put on to 1,700, give or take, people. I've helped other communities in the past find funding for things like this. Diana has offered her assistance. She's got great experience from Delphi. There are people in this community that if we got the right brains together, we could find a solution that's not going to burden 1,700 people unnecessarily. I gave Rob a while back quite a laundry list of funding places to look at. I assume he looked into it, but I'm certain there are emergency services next to education and safety for school children. Emergency services for disadvantaged towns are super high on many private funding sources lists of what they want to contribute to. I'm certain that if we took the time to investigate properly, we could find a way to maybe it wouldn't pay for all of it, but at least, have the burden on 1,700 taxpayers. So I just want to ask you to consider seriously, I'm sure you will. But I just wanted to say there's got to be a better way than putting a $13 million burden on 1,700 people. So
Nancy, just to be clear, it's not us.
I understand. Yeah, yes, I understand.
I'm just saying, that's why I was saying,
Yes,
no bells and whistles and blah, blah.
right.
Just
But
saying, it's-
yeah.
we don't have a whole lot of say in it. It's what they want, but talk to me afterwards.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Jim Gosher.
Gosher, Pratt's Falls Road. The board is familiar with my position on noise in the town, I think. One thing I do want to clear up. Speaking for myself and for Lisa Miles, and I think all those who live around the Heritage Hill area that has been our source of discontent. We're not in any way trying to regulate noise that results from agricultural activities. We all live in a farm community. We know we live in a farm community. We know there are combines at 5 o'clock in the morning. We know there are combines at midnight. We know that. We accept that. We accepted that when we moved to this community. What we have a problem with is non-agricultural noise that comes every weekend for 5-6 hours, every Friday night, every Saturday afternoon, every Sunday afternoon, that we have no control over and have apparently no right to even protest. Now, I agree that there are a number of noise ordinances in surrounding towns, surrounding rural towns that are very detailed. But because it's hard, doesn't mean it can't be done. And I also agree with Tim's statement that to make something enforceable, you've got to give the code enforcement officer the tools to be able to enforce it. We're not talking about one party in the summer. We're talking about every weekend, every day of every weekend, all summer long. So if the board is going to pass on trying to develop a uniform standard and in effect defer to the planning board on a case-by-case basis, you can make that decision or non-decision, but you're going to end up with what we already have.
There are 3 businesses in the town that have 3 different standards for outdoor music. You're gonna have a haphazard result across the town. And now you've got a code enforcement officer, you don't see Tim here, who doesn't have the tools to enforce it. So 2 weeks ago, when the planning board implemented a limit of 65 decibels on music coming from Heritage Hill, and that following weekend, it was recorded at 80 decibels, 2,100 feet away. How do we enforce that? As Tim says, do we call Tim on Monday morning and say, hey, the music was at 80 on Saturday? Tim rightfully is going to say, I don't know that it was 80 on Saturday. So whose burden is it to give the code enforcement officers the tools to enforce the limits that are being placed on these applicants? And how do we prove it? Do I have to go out and spend the money on an odometer and put them up on the trees and some kind of recording device and then bring them into Tim on Monday morning? That's not right. It's not practical. And it's not practical to ask Tim to come out to my house every Saturday afternoon. But we know it's a problem. So if this board is going to delegate the authority to the planning board to set these standards, you must give the code enforcement officers the tools to enforce the standards that the planning board sees fit to impose. If you're not going to do that, if you're not going to give the code enforcement officer the tools to enforce, then the whole thing is worthless. And if the whole thing is going to be worthless, let's just admit it. Let's just admit that the whole thing is worthless, that there is no standard, there is no limitation in the town of Huntington.
Next is Dan McClure.
McQuan, close enough.
Sorry. I probably get it wrong every time.
So unfortunately, a lot of my thunder was stolen there, so I have my notes. I'm gonna stick to them though. So I wanted to highlight that this is not about agricultural use, agricultural noise. I mean, I bought into that when I moved out here. Tractors, chainsaws, snowmobiles. I mean, you live in the country, you expect that. This is not about a couple parties a year. This is about loud music nearly every day the weather is nice. Every day. This is a huge disruption, and I did not buy into that. When we moved out here, we wanted to live on the country. We wanted some peace and quiet. We did not expect concerts and loud amplified music next door on a regular basis. But what this is about is I see a lot of inconsistency in the rules, and you touched on that. And I also see inconsistent enforcement. And one thing I wanted to highlight is, Renee, you said you're just not hearing the complaints, but you were at the planning board meetings. I don't know how many people stood up and said the noise was disrupted. There are people complaining. There are people that are adversely impacted. And you've heard that.
It's codes that needs to hear it.
Well, from what I understand, people are sending complaints and we're being told nothing can be done. Anyway, that's all I had. Thank you.
That is all. For public comment.
Stephanie Grenier. 27 Cemetery Road. And I agree with having a noise enforcement law or nuisance law. We have a facility near us, which Drexler's own, and it's a banquet facility, and their noise is contained. I don't hear it. It's possible to be done. These, and from what I hear, the Mapstone facility also, they keep the noise indoors. So it can be done. You keep the noise indoors so that the residents are not harassed, because it is harassment. I mean, they start in May and they end in October, as long as the weather is nice here every weekend. And I feel for them because, I don't have that problem because I live, near Sunnyside Farm, where they have the pumpkin farm and the Christmas tree. They have a banquet facility. Springside, I'm sorry. And everything is contained in their building. The weddings they have. I can hear a little bit of music, but it's nothing harassing me. I can just tell that I'm having a wedding sometimes. But if there's a way to do this, you keep it inside. And there's no need to have it outside broadcasting to all the residents. I mean, I drove by Hamilton Road the other day, there's a house for sale up there now. One of the residents that was harassed, that they're gonna move and their house up for sale now. So I mean, I don't think it's right to drive residents out of this town because the board won't, institute a noise ordinance.
That's it. I would make a motion to. Oh, is there anything up there? No. Yeah, motion to adjourn. Anybody want to second it? I will. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bill. Motion carried. Good, Bill.